Kept you waiting, huh?
Why are you doing like that?
So I've realized, after all these years of doing all these tutorials, I've never once really explained how Fighter Factory works, or how to set up, or like little, tips and tricks to it. So that's what today's video is going to be about. In this video, I'm going to use Fighter Factory 3. It is not the latest version. There is also Fighter Factory Studio, which is the latest version, and I personally do not like Studio whatsoever. As many updates as it does get, it tends to crash for no reason. It's pretty bad. I trust Fighter Factory 3 more. It crashes too, but it crashes less. So starting with the application, when you load it up, you get this blank screen of Project 1, and everything is pretty much blank at this point. We are going to open up Kung Fu Man. He is our special guest, as always. So once you load up a character, your first icon here with the two people, this is your definition file. This is the file that helps redirect everything. It tells it what the command file is in the folder to open, what the CNS, the constants, in the folder to open. This is the same thing. ST and CNS are like the same thing for states and constants. You could have additional files. You could have your negative state 1s, your negative state 2s, 3s. You can have a couple. Well, I'm not sure how many, but you can have, I think line is ST1, ST2 and 3, and so on. I'm not sure the limit, but that's how many you can have if you want to separate stuff. I don't, personally. SD common is the common 1 CNS. This is normally located in the data folder in Mugen. However, if your character has a common 1, this will override and it'll ignore the one in the data folder, and it'll read the one only from the characters folder. You get your sprites, air, sound, and AI. As it says here, AI hints data not used. It's never been finished, so this line is actually kind of useless by normal means, and you can remove that. Then you get your palette remap stuff here and arcade story mode stuff. So that's your definition file. This is your like redirecting file, and at the top here, obviously, this is your name and version date and stuff. As you make your characters, you want to update your version date to match, at the very least, the year that you're working on it. The next icon here is the sprites. It looks like an old Polaroid photo. This is pretty much where all your sprites are. If you have a roller on your mouse, you can roll to zoom in and out, which is very helpful. And the roller actually goes to where the axis is. So as I roll in, it's focusing on the axis, which is really nice. You have your sprites here, groups, index, X and Y's. I don't know what decompress on load means. I've never had to use this feature. You can show the background transparencies. If you have this one checked, you could change palettes and see all the sprites with a particular palette if you want. But switch to sprite palette will automatically change it to the first basic palette for that sprite. An onion skin is if you want to realign stuff. An onion skin is that lightened image of it there. You can actually have more settings to change the way that works. You can make it darker, lighter, and I think in Studio you can make it color, but we're not doing color here. On the right side you have your palettes tab. If you hover your mouse over, it'll tell you what each of the icons do. Pretty much you want to add a palette with this one, delete a palette with this one, and I like to, when you make a character in Mugen, if you save your sprite file as Mugen Beta, which I do not recommend anyone doing because that is the old WinMugen way of making characters, your palettes have to be an ACT file, a .act file, which is usually opened up with Photoshop. But other apps do open it up nowadays. It's the old way of doing it. I do not recommend it whatsoever. Saving it as Mugen 1.0 will allow you to use the modernized features of a 1.0 sprite file and some codes. And a 1.1 version, it allows you to use 24-32-bit images, which I only kind of recommend for stages Characters generally should not be 24-bit because then there's no palette and there's no palettes at all. Actually, you can't get different colors in them at all. So that is a thing. There is a workaround, but I'll discuss that later on with one of my other projects. I strongly recommend just saving as a 1.0. So the way 1.0 works is your sprites and your palettes are saved together in a single SFF. You can still make act files, but you can add them to the palette section here. But when you save it as a 1.0 SFF, everything's added to one file. It's the SFF and it has all the data of your palettes and your sprites, which is super helpful. As you hover, you can see what each thing is. I honestly don't use these things much often. I try not to. I don't really have a need to. Going back to the left side, you have your options here to add sprites, to load them from a file, to save them as a file, to save the SFF, to duplicate the sprite. I only recommend duplicating sprites for your Hertz sprites, like your 5000s. If you're making a chibi character, they only have like 2 Hertz sprites, one hit in the face, one hit in the stomach, right? So you would duplicate the 1 Hertz sprite and just change it to each group number that's required. So this way, your character will have all the Hertz animations or Hertz sprites in at least. And this is something all characters should have. Like, nobody should skip this step whatsoever. All characters need their 5000 Hertz required sprites, I think the term is. This is to delete an image, and this is to delete a whole group if you want to delete a whole group. What is this? This is the finder apply. I'm not sure what I would use that for. Crop, in case your image ad has a big old border, this crop will remove it and just give you like this from edge to edge of the character. ABCs, if you want to rename a group, say I don't want this group to be 43, I want it to be 6000. I'll do that entire group and hit OK. It doesn't show up right away, but when you go to the next image, it's there now. And go back. So can I undo that? Good, I can undo that. This last one, which looks like a window at a mountain and grass, it's an image editor. If you zoom in, you have full access to the palette if you wanted to doodle on it. Some people use this for color separating. I personally cannot, but like if I wanted to, can I change these colors? I cannot, not here at least. But like if I wanted to redo Kung Fu Man and make him like a black Kung Fu Man or something, like I could do each sprite one by one. This looks like a jacket. Each sprite one by one here, or I can use some outside application to do it there. What do I use this for? Usually just clean up. Like if I got a few like extra pixels, this is an eraser obviously. I would, why is that? Oh, I would like, remove a few pixels here and there. The slider, take his whole hair off. Look at that. So that's one of the reasons I would use it, and maybe like flipping and stuff like that. I don't use the editor that much. Some people do. Some people will do a whole color separation using the sprite editor, the image editor. I personally cannot. I've never figured out how this works. Maybe that's why I don't do it. Okay, moving on. Before I go anywhere from here, actually, these boxes here, these are alignment boxes. They align to a set position based on the whole image's box. So if I do center, that's the center of the box. Align this way, that way, and so on and so forth. Let me undo everything. Okay. So that's very important. You zoom in, zoom out in the calculator. Next is the command file. Actually, sorry, no, this is the animations file. It's late. Here's the fun thing. So in your animations, you have your slider for all your animations. Total is 117. Your name, your number for them. You cannot have 2 animations with the same number. Mugen's going to pick the first one, and you're never going to see the second one. It's not like a random thing either. If you want random, you have to do a code to make it randomized. But everything should have a particular order and number. generally speaking, 5,000s, all 5,000s are normally relegated to hurt recovery animations. So if you have an animation that's 5,000 on something, I strongly do not recommend doing that. Next is your frames. You can look at each frame one by one. And then you have the group and index for the frame, so you know what frame you're playing. Additional X and Y positioning, the time for the frame. So if I set this to, let me see, it's 10, 7, 7, 7, 45. Wait, what? No, okay. If you set this all to like 3 and I hit this button, it's gonna make all the frames 3, and then when I play it, he's just faster. Let me undo that. Good. Same thing with flip. You can flip it vertically, horizontally, or both. And this button will make all the following frames, everything after it, will be flipped horizontally. Same with transparency. You have your add, which is, it adds 256 and 256. The lower your dest, the darker it is. Or, yeah, the darker usually. And the lower your source, the more invisible it is. So 16 is barely visible. If you wanted to do like a stealth attack or invisibility, this is an easy way to do it, making the sprites barely visible. And then subtraction, which is, it's like a negative image. So you only want to use addition and subtraction for effects, particularly. I've noticed certain effects with subtraction do not look good whatsoever. And it looks kind of like what you're seeing now with like a negative Kung Fu Man. It does not look good long term. This is a button that lets it loop the frame of animation. See? So he's like jittering because he's looping that particular frame. We don't want that. You got your red box for an attack. You got your blue box for a body. Can I undo that? Okay, good, I could. I got scared for a second. Okay, so if I click on a box and then I click this one, it will delete the box. This one will copy the box from the previous frame. So for instance, see these boxes? If I added in this frame, if I want to use the boxes in the first frame, in the second frame, I can hit this button here and it will copy the boxes. So they both have the same boxes now. This is very helpful for doing your hurt animations and attacks where the frames are the same. Why did they not delete? It did delete. Okay, and then you have your switching boxes. So say I have a red hitbox, but I want it to be a blue hitbox. I will switch it with this button here. I've never had to use for this option ever, but it is a thing. And now there's two other color of hitboxes. You get your red. If you hit the last option, it'll change it to a global hitbox. So you press this. Every frame after this frame is going to have this red hitbox. If I hit play, you'll see red hitbox. I mean yellow hitbox. If I had a blue frame and I hit this button, it turns green. Now this is without it being green. It's just that one frame is a hitbox. Everything else is not hittable. When I make this green, everything could be hit. Okay, now a fancy little feature here. If you notice, there's on the right side at the bottom under your thumbnails, you have X scale, Y scale, and angle. Mugen 1.0 and 1.1 have this feature, and it's really cool. You can actually change animations and stuff in here without messing with it with coding, with angle draws. I find that in Mugen 1.1 you get the best results for using this stuff. And it's really cool that we have features like this now. Let me put this back to normal. I think it's 0, yeah. And the interpolate codes are a little more advanced. I think I went over that in another video. But Yeah, these are things that you never really notice are on this side, but you can use them to like scale animations and stuff. So like, say each frame, I want him to get wider and wider. And I'll have him like shrink back down. Okay, so I play it nice like this. It's a cool little scale thing. I mean, it looks kind of cool actually. Weird, but looks cool. So that's a nice little feature there. And then going up here to the top, you have the blue up and down arrows, which is the organizer. Organizer lets you see everything in like word form, in short form. So you can scroll through everything quickly, find what you're looking for, and double click and get to it. And when you click it again, depending on what you're doing, it'll change the thumbnails in this case. You can also do alignment here, which I've never done. So I wouldn't really get into that. Next, you have your states. This is what all your code is. Your codes and stuff on the left. Your actual codes are here in the center. Sorry, these are like the labels. On the center is the codes, and on the right is like the library of codes. These are all the basic Mugen S controls. Everything is here. That's official. In Eichmann Go and Mugen 1.1, there are some codes that are not documented, but they do work sometimes. Something I recently learned: if you click on a code and then click the red notepad here, you can actually change the code. So by default, take a look here in my win pose, right? If I click exploit, I get this by default. However, if I edit it and I just wanted to just show this, every time I click my exploit button, it just shows that. So you don't have to stick with what the default setting is for these codes. And if you don't know what it is, do not mess with it. Obviously, you're going to break something and then there's no way to fix it. So you can do that. Or you can hit new. Like I can add the zoom code, which doesn't really work. But, with this, it will work. I'll add like that. And then you have to add it here to the folder. Zoom. Scroll down to the bottom and there it is. Anytime I want to use zoom, I can now double click, boom, zoom code added. Easy as that. And you can delete, of course, too. Next is the command file. The label for all your commands are here. You can click these arrows to see everything. There's not much to really see here. Like the CNS, all your command code is here. It's pretty straightforward. It's not really a guide on how to do this stuff, but just how to use this thing. Same thing here. So the command file works like the CNS. You can use these same codes in the command file, but it doesn't work as... it does work. I have never had a need for it, but you can do that. You can use like a power add and a power set for a trigger or something. Your sound file, all your sounds are here, groups and indexes. The images are pretty straightforward. Nothing really to explain here. This is your organizer. It'll get your numbers out so you can see numbers on where everything is. There's no organizer for this, obviously. There is for this one, though. The organizer is everything that's here, pretty much. Let's go to the sprite file. This object here is a palette editor. This is a good way to make palettes if you don't know already. You take the ink dropper tool, pick the colors you want, and then you can just like scale this thing back and forth, and you can get palettes going. Let's get this color too. Good. So I hit the green check, good. Now he's all green, and then I want to hit the save as group index, and I'll put this as group 1 index 10. Right, so now if I check Kung Fu Man palette 10, other images is going to be this. take this off for a second. Now look, I can pretty much make a palette in seconds, just like that. And you can find that here. This is the what are these called? Easels? No, it's not an easel. I forgot what these things are called. A canvas. That's your canvas. And then you have your options. This is a nice little place to be. So a lot of people have this problem where they want to test a character, but they don't want to have to open Mugen over and over. And like if you click this, it's not set up right. So this is how you set it up. You click on the little wrench and screwdriver. You go to Mugen here. You add. You give it a name. Example, right? Then you have to find your executable. This is your Mugen.exe file. In my case, I am going to open here and hit Mugen. That's that. Icon. I don't know why you want to put icon. It's Fighter Factory. And then your parameters. Ideally, you want to use current character versus current character, or with the AI on, or against Kung Fu Man, or Kung Fu Man with AI. If you want to do stages, you can set it to this for stage testing. And hit OK, apply, close, and then you can test. And there you go. Kung Fu Man. Oh my god, that is horrifying. And yeah, so that's how you would be able to test your characters without opening the engine over and over. Then you have your interface here. You got your themes. I don't care for any of these, honestly. It's distracting to me. It's very distracting with these colors. Even this one for Ultimate looks nice, but it moves these boxes, the alignments, from up here and puts them down here, and that throws me off like a lot. So I just use Classic. Colors, you can pick the way you want colors to appear. That's mostly for the codes. And collision boxes, of course. Let's see, so like the block header, that's the state def. The number are these numbers. The strings are not something I have on the screen. And you can make the calls of what you want it to be based on your eyesight. Image is kind of fun. In the images tab, you can kind of control the cursor in the background here. So if I do modern and apply, that's the modern cursor. Pretty much everything at the line is floor level. Or I can go to default. Or if I want my own, I can go to custom and I can add a sprite I want to be the cursor. Like say, if I wanted to do a line all the way across the screen and then up and down with numbers like a grid, so I have a rough idea of how many pixels things move forward and back, I can do that. Animation extra, I don't know what that is. Maybe it's an animated version of it. I don't know, honestly. I've never touched that. The onion skin, you could do monochrome, lighter, dark. Actually, let's see, lighter. Let's see if you could do color. Oh, you could do color. Okay. So you could do a colored onion skin, and I guess you can do a darker version of it too. Yeah, you could do a darker version. I personally like monochromatic, and you can choose how much you want to see or not see. You get your background, the default 240. This is a 240 one. And this just changes the size of the whole thing in the grand scheme of all that. Okay. If you want to do a custom picture, you could do that here also. You click custom and change your picture. Your positioning for it, your zoom, large range, small range, yep. The center of the sprite's axis, or you could do workspace, which is, it's kind of a little chaotic. Collision boxes, and then text. You could change the text that you see stuff in. So, like here, it's kind of console-y to me. Like, it's too console-y. I don't like it. I want Comic Sans, size 12. And boom, Comic Sans size 12. Am I going to look at this the entire time? No, it's a horrible thing to look at the entire time. You got to play around and find a font that you don't mind looking at for hours on end. It's easy on the eyes. Like, this is easy on the eyes, but it's too small. That's better. Yeah, it's better on my eyes. All right, so that's pretty much the options tab. But the most important part of all of this was this one here, adding a Mugen engine and shortcutting yourself to making characters. And obviously the last icon here is to test your game, test your character. Working backwards now. This file here will create a backup, this sheet with a padlock. You don't really want to make a backup because it adds a second folder inside your characters folder, and you might forget that it's in there. So when you zip up the character to upload it, it's gonna have two versions of him in there, the backup and the regular one. And in my experience in the past, I've had issues where Fighter Factory would load the backup instead of the main character, and then I would just lose progress. The black floppy disk is a save all. I never use this. I like to go to project and hit save, and it saves everything. If you want to open the character, close the project, new project, and the usual things. And then on top, kind of the same-ish of things with sounds. Sates has some additional things here. Like if you want to make a certain, like a PAL effects, like this has a nice little PAL effects editor. And you can like test out a few of the basic samples here. Like fire, invert it, yeah. Let's do that. That's for his introduction. He is going to be on fire. There you go.
Round one.
Ew, that thing still freaks me out. So yeah, and so this is a palette editor, and you could do whatever you want with these values. You don't have to be limited to anything. I think you can go negative too. Yeah, negative 256 and all that good stuff. And it's a nice thing to have for a palette editor. There's an offset viewer, which I don't know what this would be for. I think the offset viewer is used for throws, but the throw creator looks the exact same. I've never used the throw creator, honestly. It confuses me, and I've always done it the old-fashioned way of aligning and positioning and stuff like that. This confuses me because what is it? Look at this value. These values are like all over the place. 667. That's a weird value. There's an option. Another thing for debugging yourself and figuring out things. We have the. Where did that go? Oh, we have the insert variable log, and this will pretty much tell you all the variables you're using, and it'll give you a list of them and based on what you have for your setting. And so far we're using variable 1 in state -1 and variable 2 in state 810. Very cool. Integer variables and float variables. Very nice, very nice. That's pretty much it there. Straightforward. One thing for the animation file, which is like a godsend. Take off this onion skin. Say you have this hitbox, right? But you use this animation for multiple animations, multiple kicks, right? But you want to use the same hitboxes. You don't want to go back and forth, copy and pasting, and get confused and all that. There's this nice feature in the animations tab at the very bottom called use these CLSNs in other instances of this frame. Essentially, with this option, anywhere you see this frame, this animation frame, it's gonna take these hitboxes and put it on that frame. So when you're doing hurt animations that for chibi characters that have one sprite, you put the box on one frame and you hit that button, and it's gonna make all those frames have the same hitbox. And this will cut your time with your hurt standards in like half. It's so good. Oh, another thing. There's a text mode for animations. This is the old-fashioned way of doing animations. Very old-fashioned. This is what your action numbers and everything look like. That Mugen takes and like puts into image. Palette went over this stuff. Sprites. Yeah. Oh, you can also export your sprites and import the sprites. If you export, they become single file images of each image. Import, you can add them back as single images, or you can import from another project. I don't have another project open, but if I had, say, Ryu from Street Fighter, I could import his sprites into Kung Fu Man and do whatever I want to do with it. Definition, blah, blah, blah. And then you get your basic little views and things here. But that pretty much sums it up for Fighter Factory 3. I do not recommend using Fighter Factory Studio. An issue I had with it was I had two characters open, and I closed one, and it closed both characters. So whatever work I had in the first character, it was gone. And at one point I thought I was crazy, so I tried it again. I had like 3 characters open and a stage I was working on open. I closed the stage because I was done with it, and it closed all 3 characters. And I just don't like the fact that it's closing everything when I just close one thing. It's really bothersome. The other features for it are really nice. Like, it looks nice and everything, but that one bug, it just drives me crazy. So, thanks for watching.
Room for one more?
Aha.
Over already?